Sonic Frontier's story seems to be taking a serious route, and in this video I want to talk about why this is a good thing for this series, because I think the story in Sonic games taking significance again is a big deal. And sure, as games like Sonic Colors, Sonic Generations, and Sonic Lost World do technically have significant stories, you can tell that the primary focus was not on the story in those games. It was definitely the gameplay, and that was mostly due to having Pontac and Graf writing the stories of Sonic games during that era. And as you know, Pontac and Graf did write the story for Sonic Forces, but personally I don't think Pontac and Graf were an issue. I think if you're going to have them, then just focus on the gameplay. But I do think where the problem lies is with having them write Sonic Forces. Sonic Forces story, in my opinion, is a failed attempt at a serious story, and I can't even blame Pontac and Graf for that. Yes, some of the blame goes on everybody for that game. Everybody that was involved with developing Sonic Forces deserves a part of the blame. But at the end of the day, it's the higher ups that hire and fire people. And if you're going to go with a serious story, you need to know that you have the personnel to be able to do that. You can't get people that don't know the series or don't have much experience with serious stories to make a serious story. It's just not how it works. That's like asking a position player to be the starting pitcher in a baseball game. You're going to lose the game. So you're not really going to get anywhere if you don't evaluate your personnel. But with that being said, Sonic Frontiers is going to be penned by a new writer. So as you know, Ian Flynn is the writer behind the Sonic IDW comic, and he also has a long history with the Sonic character. So he understands Sonic, and he understands how he talks to his peers, how he interacts with people, how he interacts with strangers, how his aura, he knows Sonic. So having somebody that knows the character, that really understands the character, is a lot better when you're trying to go for a more serious story. And from the dialogue that we've heard so far, it sounds pretty good, and it's great that they're doing this because it's returning Sonic to his roots. And when I say roots, I don't mean gameplay, I just mean narratively. In a game like Sonic Colors, for example, Sonic does not sound like himself. He has the same traits, but it just, something is not right about it. In those games, dialogue and stories just come off as generic cartoons. Those stories were also missing elements that make Sonic stories Sonic stories. Like, one of the biggest things that make a Sonic story feel like it's a Sonic story is the Chaos Emeralds. The Chaos Emeralds have not been incorporated in a Sonic story since Sonic Generations, and even in Sonic Generations they weren't really utilized in the story. They were just there so you can fight the Time Eater as the final boss. So Sonic Unleashed was technically the last Sonic game to actually use the Chaos Emeralds in meaningful fashion. So I think it's pretty good that the Emeralds are coming back and they're going to be a meaningful use in the story. It's already looking like Sonic's going to have to turn super a few times within the game, so I feel like that's pretty cool, and there's probably going to be a new form, so that's actually pretty interesting. And none of us really know for sure if the Master Emerald's going to be in the game, but in that short clip of the little animation prologue that they're going to drop before the game comes out with Knuckles and all that, they did show Knuckles was right by the Master Emerald, so Master Emerald's going to be in the story some way, somehow. And it's also great that the Master Emerald is returning because Knuckles gets to return to his respective role as the guardian of the Master Emerald. In the past 10 years, it's kind of felt like Knuckles has been that one character that they've just been throwing around in different roles, seeing what sticks. It's trying to kind of not change his character, but seeing where he can fit. But none of those roles really felt like Knuckles. Like in Sonic Boom, Knuckles was like the built, dumb, jock type character, and that was cool for Sonic Boom, but that wasn't really what Knuckles was, and that only could be an exclusive Sonic Boom thing. And in Sonic Forces, they made him the leader of the Resistance, which didn't really fit him, in my opinion. So bringing him back to form seems like a really good sign for the series. Going into some other things like the voice direction changing is also another big deal. So it's pretty obvious that Roger's going with a new voice direction. Sonic's voice has a deeper tone to it. It sounds a lot more serious. It definitely does fit the vibe a lot more. And even though it does have mixed thoughts, it's good to see that there's being effort put into making the series serious and actually fitting the theme of the game. In Sonic Forces, Sonic cracking jokes and speaking in a high tone, a really high morale tone, did not fit what the situation was at all. So for him to sound a lot more deep tone, serious in this, it makes a lot more sense. And last but not least, the music. You cannot forget about the music. The music in this game, not only is it good, but it definitely does capture a somber, mysterious vibe. It really does fit the entire theme that this game is going for, especially the ending theme. The ending theme definitely does have a really serious, intense feel to it. Same thing with the opening theme. But with all that being said, why is this good? Well, first, you can definitely visually see them taking fans' criticism into consideration. For the longest time, it's felt like Sega and Sonic Team has kind of listened to the fans, but they've put a lot more weight into what the critics have said, and I mean a significant amount. Of course, a gaming company company is going to take what critics say a little bit more serious, but what the fans have to say is still pretty important. And you can kind of see this change going on because critics were the reason why Sonic stories have kind of taken a backseat in the past 10 years in the first place. Critics didn't think serious stories belonged in Sonic games. So I do think it's a pretty good sign that Sonic team is kind of taking a risk here and going back into making serious Sonic stories, knowing that critics don't really like that, and hopefully they can find a balance between something that the critics can like and something that the fans can like. But I also wanted to say that Sonic team going back into the serious Sonic direction is also great because I feel like an interesting story really does complement the gameplay. It makes the gameplay feel a lot more interesting, a lot more rewarding, and it does really make what you're doing in the game feel a lot more meaningful. And I feel like an interesting story motivates you to make more progress, to get through the game, to see what happens next, rather than games like Colors and Gens where there's a light story and it feels like you're just running through levels in a very streamlined format. Frontiers will task you to go on your own path to collect the Chaos Emeralds to make progress, in which in my opinion is a lot more engaging. And this isn't to say that Sonic Colors and Generations are bad games. They're pretty good games, and it's not bad to have a streamlined format. I just think having a game where the story has more impact on what you do in a less streamlined format is a better overall experience than a game that has a less meaningful story with less impact on what you do in the game because of the prevalent streamlined format. I do think Sonic Frontiers will have elements of streamlined gameplay because I feel like in each island you're going to be doing pretty much the same thing. You're probably going to find the emeralds in one island, move to the next island, get the emeralds again, move to the next island, get the emeralds again, fight enemies on each island. You're probably going to do the same thing on each island, but a serious story definitely does open up opportunity to explain why Sonic has to go through these islands and why Sonic is doing what he is doing going through the game. But I do think the story is going to be pretty good in this game. I'm pretty interested to see what it's all about, but it definitely is going to be the best of both worlds here. If the gameplay is good, then people that don't care about the story are going to get their gameplay. People that care more about the story are going to get their story that they've been waiting for a long time, a Sonic story that feels like a Sonic story. And then people that care about both the story and gameplay are hopefully going to like both parts and going to get a full experience out of this game. A lot more of an experience out of this game than they probably would have gotten out of Sonic Colors or Sonic Forces or even Sonic Generation. And in this video right here, I go a little bit deeper into the possibilities of Sonic having a new super form in Sonic Frontiers.